My name is Hannah, this is Stellar Kind Oracle, and today we are talking about planets. This is the third video in my Astrology 101 series, and if you haven't seen the others, I do recommend that you check them out. They are linked down below in the description, along with other astrology resources and timestamps for specific planets in today's video. Planets in astrology refer to the bodies in our solar system that we can see from the Earth, which does include the sun and the moon. Those last two aren't technically planets, but we do see their movement through the sky from our perspective down here. And since mapping that perspective is the basis of astrology, they are included in the general label. The term luminaries, which means a source of light, is also sometimes used to describe the sun and the moon instead. This Earth-centric perspective is also what allows for the illusion of retrograde planets to happen. When a planet is in retrograde, it appears to be moving backwards along its usual orbit. The planets aren't actually switching direction, it just appears that they are because of our view of things as the Earth turns in its own orbit. All planets besides the sun and moon have a retrograde period at some point, as well as periods of station before and after. This means that it appears the planets are completely still for a few days before moving forward again. When a planet starts moving again, we say that it has gone direct. The meaning of retrogrades is a little bit different for every planet, but in general it takes the theme of the planet and internalizes it, making its influence reflective instead of active. There are 10 planets in astrology, each one representing a basic and universal psychological process. Everyone is affected by all 10 planets, and they all serve a role that is essential to our lives. Remember that the planets describe the what of a placement, while the signs will later specify how and why that what is expressed. Planets are basic, but their expression gets more individual later in the signs. For the purpose of today's video, we are going to be talking about the planets in the context of a natal chart reading. The planets with the most weight on the natal chart, and thus the self at large, are the sun and the moon. The sun is representative of the development of ego. In this context, ego means our personal concept of self and the behavior that supports that concept. Ego is also the mediator between our unconscious desires and our conscious actions. The sun is the center of our solar system, which all other planets circle around, and it serves the same purpose in astrology. The sun is the part of our personality that holds the most gravity. It's the identity we always come back to when we center and ground ourselves, and it's the part of us that makes major life decisions, gives us a sense of purpose, and consciously creates our reality. It also shows us growth patterns that contribute to our sense of self-fulfillment, or conversely, areas where self-centeredness and pride may limit us. The sun symbol, or glyph, uses the circle to represent the self and the cycle of life, and the center dot mimics the ego's gravity and the sun's position in the solar system. When we think about the popular view of astrology, we are thinking about the sign in which the sun is placed in our natal chart. This is a pretty easy calculation to make because the sun moves through the signs in a regular, steady pattern day by day, and you can use your birthday to easily figure it out. This is a pretty good indicator of our general sense of self, but it is far from the full picture of how we think, act, and feel in all circumstances. The moon can be seen as the sun's counterpart, and the two work closely together. The moon represents our inner world. It's our emotional selves, the self that unconsciously reacts. The moon is the part of us that we experience internally before it is moderated and put into action by the sun and other planets. Emotions, moods, intuition, reactions, attachments, instincts, these are the moon's territory. The cycle of the moon reflects the nature of this planet in astrology. Our emotions are constantly shifting and moving through rhythms and cycles just like the moon is. The moon shows us how we process and integrate our emotions and connect to our intuition, but it can also indicate areas where we are moody, reactive, and irrational. The moon's glyph is a crescent, representing receptivity and sensitivity to outside influence, and also showing the changing and cyclical nature of our emotions. The sun and the moon respectively represent the masculine and feminine parts of self. When I say masculine and feminine here, I'm not talking about gender. In energetic terms, masculine energy is active and creative, while feminine energy is passive and receptive. We all have both feminine and masculine aspects of our personality, and the sun and moon is a perfect representation of this. This duality isn't related to our sex or gender identity, but if you don't like the gendered words, you can also use yin or negative to represent feminine energy, and yang or positive to represent masculine energy. In addition to the sun and moon, the next 3 planets are known as the personal planets. These planets are the closest to the Earth, are never too far from the sun when charted, and are most closely related to our personality. Mercury is our first planet, and it represents our mental processes. Mercury's placement describes how we think and learn, and then how we communicate what we think and learn to others. Intelligence, practicality, problem solving, curiosity, these are mercurial areas of life. Mercury is the closest to the sun, and because of this placement, moves the fastest through the sky. Symbolically speaking, this can be likened to the mind constantly whirring around behind the scenes and working closely with the ego to communicate. Mercury shows us how we can best use our specific brand of intelligence to serve us and others, but can also cause us to be nervous, nitpicky, and emotionally detached. Mercury's glyph shows an upward crescent representing receptivity to the superconscious, a circle representing the self, and a cross representing translation into the material through communication. Venus is next and is the closest planet besides the moon to the Earth. Venus represents earthly pleasures and how we interact with them, how we take in beauty, what we are drawn to aesthetically, what we prefer to indulge in. These are the kinds of things that are described by our Venus placements. Venus is also deeply related to love and intimacy, probably the most universal earthly pleasure of all. How we show up intimately in relationship and what we are seeking in our intimate relationships is indicated by our Venus placements. Venus is motivated by love, peace, pleasure, and balance, and can show us how we can best incorporate these qualities into our life. But Venus can also show up as vain, superficial, addictive, and materialistic. Venus's glyph includes the circle of the self and the cross of matter, representing our personal relationship with the Earth. Mars is next. Mars is the planet of inspired action and rules our will, drive, and desire. Mars is the planet that allows us to assert ourselves and take action. Both Mars and the Sun inspire us to make willful decisions, but Mars isn't moderated by ego. Mars is more related to our instinctual actions, both our passion and our aggression, and the red color of its surface definitely fits in with those themes. Mars traditionally is associated with sex and sexual desire as well, and it works in tandem with Venus in our romantic relationships. Our Mars placement can show us how to act from a place of passion, take risks, and assert ourselves, but it can also cause us to lose our tempers, act impulsively, and become overly aggressive and impatient. Mars's glyph shows the circle of self and an arrow representing willful forward action. The next 2 planets are what I refer to as our karmic planets. Jupiter and Saturn are 2 sides of the same coin, and together they reveal what we have brought into this life and what we are working towards. Regardless of whether or not you believe in the concept of karma, Jupiter and Saturn are the major balancers of our natal charts, and they provide both blessings and lessons. Traditionally, Jupiter is known as the great benefactor and reveals an area where you are naturally gifted and experience luck, expansion, and benefit. But Jupiter isn't always helpful. On the flip side, Jupiter can cause overindulgence, laziness, and naivety around the area that comes so easily to us. Since Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system, anything that it touches is heightened, expanded, and broadened in some way. Again, that's not always beneficial, as Jupiter's influence can easily tip into excessiveness. Jupiter also has to do with developing faith through experience. Jupiter in our birth chart reveals where we will receive great blessings as a way to develop our optimism, trust, and sense of gratitude. Jupiter's glyph shows a crescent to the left, representing receptivity to our past experiences, and a material cross to the right, representing solidifying our perceptions into faith in the material. Saturn is in many ways the opposite of Jupiter. While Jupiter blesses us, Saturn challenges us. Where Jupiter is expansive, Saturn is restrictive. However, Saturn also reveals an area where we have a lot to gain if we put in the dedicated work it takes to get there. And Saturn is a planet that inspires us to put in that work. Our ambitions and desires are closely aligned with the lessons that Saturn teaches us and shows us that with dedication and time, we can overcome any difficulties we may face in the process. Structure, discipline, authority, boundaries, these are the Saturn-ruled parts of life. Saturn tends to teach us hard lessons with tough love, but these lessons lead us exactly where we want to go. On the flip side, Saturn can cause workaholism, depression, and self-constriction. Saturn's glyph shows the cross of matter over a crescent pointing downwards towards the subconscious and left to the past, representing our material action taking precedence over our emotional experiences. Jupiter and Saturn are both associated with the father archetype, in kind of a good cop, bad cop kind of way. The last three planets are referred to as the outer planets, or the transpersonal planets. These planets progress through our sky at a really slow pace and take years to travel through just one sign. Because of this, the meaning of these planets in the signs can be thought of as generational placements, as they affect whole generations of people. More individual meaning can be pulled from the house placements of these planets in a natal chart. These planets were also all discovered much later in our history than the original 7, and what was happening globally at the time of their discovery is a big part of their modern symbolism. First up is Uranus. Uranus is the planet of individuality and gives us the specific and unique parts of our personality that develop separately from everything else around us. Uranus actually rolls along its orbit instead of spinning on an axis, contrary to every other single planet in the solar system. Uranus was discovered in 1781, a few years after the American Revolution and right before the French Revolution, and also right at the end of the Age of Enlightenment and Reason, all periods in history where individualism and revolt against systems of authority were emphasized. Uranus in your chart also functions through rebellion from the systems of authority that surround you, whether that be your family, community, religion, education, etc. Wherever you assert your independence and autonomy as a unique individual, Uranus is at work. Our Uranus placements can help us to feel 100% ourselves, but can also lead to a haughty and self-aggrandizing attitude or rebellion just for rebellion's sake. Uranus's glyph shows the cross of matter in the center and crescents pointing both left and right towards the past and future, then connecting to the circle of self below. This represents how our earthly experiences, as well as our plans for the future, combine together to create a unique individual expression of self. Neptune is Uranus's counterpart and was discovered in 1846 after its gravitational effect was observed disturbing Uranus's orbit. Where Uranus rules our freedom of self, Neptune rules how we find freedom from self. Neptune is the part of us that transcends the individual and connects to the collective. Anything that has the ability to get you outside of yourself is an area ruled by Neptune. This includes big concepts of spirituality, consciousness, and enlightenment, as well as more daily experiences like daydreaming and empathy. Neptune's discovery comes near the start of major movements for the rights of workers, women, and children, as well as a major increase in globalization following the Industrial Revolution. There is also an elusive and mysterious aspect to Neptune that associates it with areas such as dreams, illusions, and the occult. While Neptune's influence in our charts can help us with mindful awareness and compassion for others, in excess it can lead us to escapism, confusion, and delusion. Neptune's glyph shows an upward-facing crescent and arrows connecting to the cross of matter. This represents our receptivity to the collective, translating into the material and then put into action back into the collective. Pluto is the last planet and the most recently discovered. Pluto was discovered in 1930, right at the start of the Great Depression and shortly before World War II and the rise of existentialism. That is an intense list for an intense planet. Pluto symbolizes our relationship with power, legacy, and deep soul transformation. After Uranus and Neptune build up our identity and then separate us from it, Pluto takes things a step further and asks the question, what are you going to do about it now? Pluto sees that our individual lives are ultimately a tiny drop in the ocean of time, and then it challenges us to make as many ripples as we can with the time that we do have. Pluto operates through massive changes, deep transformations, and ego death to make us into a version of ourselves that can leave a lasting impact. Pluto's position in our chart reveals how and where we can embrace our destiny and step into our power. But true power lies in knowing that our power and even our legacy is temporary, and if Pluto loses sight of this, it veers into becoming dogmatic, destructive, controlling, and authoritarian. Pluto's glyph shows the circle of self above a crescent and cross, representing individual influence having a material impact on the earth. I know that was a lot of information, so don't worry about remembering it all right away. As we go through the series, you will start to see how everything fits together and connects, and it will become easier to remember. Keep in mind that astrology uses symbols that operate on a subconscious level, so go with your gut and feel it out as you learn. These archetypes resonate with us intuitively, and they're just waiting to be fully recognized and accessed. This video is also always here if you need it, and you can find timestamps to the individual planets in the description below. Next time we are going to be starting on the signs, and I'm going to be talking about elements, modalities, and polarities. If you don't know what those words mean, that is a great reason to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and tune in to next Monday's video. Please like, comment, and share if you enjoyed this video or know someone who would, and know that I will be answering any questions you might have in the comments down below. Also, be sure to follow me on Instagram. I will be posting infographics that go along with our videos throughout the week, as well as other spirituality and tarot content. That is also linked down below in the description. Thank you for watching. I hope to catch you at our video next week, and I hope you enjoyed. Bye!